Hello and welcome back, all you wonderful people out there, to the very poorly named DPC Daily, because it's not about the DPC and it's not daily. So that's just the thing that's going on right now. March, hello and welcome. How are you today, sir? You look so dapper.
Hello. I just woke up and I'm very excited to have the interview with you.
Oh my god, you're so great. I love you so much. Yeah, well, and real quickly before we get too much into it, I just want to put out there that March's story goes way beyond what we can cover in an hour. So there'll be a couple of points where I'm like, you should go listen to more about this later and go look at more of this later. And there's some great stories that are mixed in there that we just aren't going to be able to cover today. So very cool dude, and be sure to keep reading up on him. But I guess that I wanted to start, like, a lot of people's first memories or experiences with you, I think, March, start with like that TI5 MVP Phoenix stuff. But your Dota story goes back like a lot further long ago than that as well. And particularly like back to some TI1 stuff that a lot of people, or what could have been TI1 stuff that not a lot of people know about necessarily. So we'll get more into that in a second or two. But just like as an exercise in appreciation, do you ever just like sit back and reflect on like what the world of Dota is today versus what it was like when you first started? What's that look like when it looks back?
So, yeah, thinking back, I don't do this anymore. But when it was like really hard for me to get to TI, or when I never got to TI, around the TI 5 times, I was reflecting back to TI 1, where I
Mhm.
was actually invited to TI 1 amongst with Fear Online Kingdom, and I thought it was not a real stuff. And yeah, I'm not gonna go to this tournament. I will just finish my study in the university, go to the graduate school. Yeah, and then it turns out to be real. And let's see, here we are, and Dota has grown up so much since then.
Right. Does it feel like, do you feel like an appreciation for how much it's grown? Do you like, did you ever imagine that it was going to, like, obviously that one tournament in particular, it seemed crazy, but like then over the next little bit, did it ever feel like it could get as big as it is now to you?
To be honest, not really. I was skeptical about my futures as well. I didn't really know if Dota could, you know, be my real job, but it is, and I feel like it will continue for another couple of years, and hopefully I can keep making a living off of it.
Absolutely. That's what I think we're all hoping for, sure. But getting into that experience, I was looking back through some of your older interviews that you did with Shiva at Starladder in 2014, which again, we'll talk more about that experience too as we get into it. But you mentioned that around that TI1, that invitation and that decision to not go, that legendary team was Fear, Lacoste, Merlini, Pycat, Come With Me, Universe, and then 1437, who ended up replacing you instead, that you instead decided to go to grad school. And at the time, you called it the greatest regret of your life at 2014. That's what you had said, at least. Does that still hold true today, or do you view that decision any differently now?
uh, doesn't really make a difference anymore
Yeah.
because I had been to TI in 2015, and I also really wanted to go to TI one more time as a player and then retire. I think I made it with TNC last year, but unfortunately because of the COVID stuff, I wasn't able to. But this year I at least am going, hopefully, as a coach.
Right.
Uh, yeah, because of it, I guess I don't really regret it so much. But around the TI 4 times where I didn't make it to I only ended up, I finished at the wild card,
Right.
and when I failed to go to the main stage, it felt really bad. So maybe that's why I felt like it was biggest regret of my life, but not anymore.
Yeah. It's weird the way that can happen sometimes, right? Where like something that feels so huge to us and like this big failing, then you have some success later in life and realize that was just kind of a path to somewhere else. For sure. Well, I guess that sort of talking a little bit about that period of time then as well. You talked about the decision of being a professional player or continuing your degree. Can you tell me a little bit through like what was going through your head at that time, whether it was like any pressures that you felt either from yourself or your family or society as a whole about like what you should be doing going forward? Was it pressure that sort of led you to make that decision, or was it, what was it that was going on?
Uh, no really pressure, but I just didn't know what to do after finishing my university, and I didn't really feel like going to work yet, so I kind of used the grad school as a way to delay myself from going to work. I
Yeah.
think that's what I did. So I didn't really have like ambition to study more, or it wasn't a field that like I wanted to study more. It was more like a delaying way of not going
Yeah.
to work at the time. I was
That's
really
fair.
young. Yeah.
I think that's fair. That's I think a lot of people go through with like you finish university and then it's like, well, what do I do now, right? Like, well, everybody just expects that you get out of there and you go right into a job, and then people can follow that trajectory for a long time. But I guess that also along with that, like there was beginning to be these rumblings of Dota 2 expanding out, beginning of like Korean Dota as a whole, because it wasn't that much of anything at all beforehand. And the Dota FX Open esports team that you ended up moving on to, and then eventually MVP Phoenix. We
hmm
don't want to go through the whole history of KDL, but were there any like standout moments from that time that you felt like really changed kind of the trajectory of your career?
Well, I think just at the time, KDL, it was like really easy competition for me, and I knew a lot of good players already. I knew players like Forep, Heen, who are like still famous people. I was like friends with them even back in the times. So gripping up with them and then playing that league was kind of easy to win. But just the fact that that tournament existed changed a lot of the trajectory of the players. Like Forep, Heen, or I would have. I mean, Dota, I think would have just kept on going on without KDL, but without the KDL, I would probably working at some company right now.
Hmm.
Same for Heen or Forep. So yeah, but that tournament just existing changed a lot of our life.
That's fair. I think one of the things that stood out to me when I was looking through that time period too was the fact that like some of the prizes for that weren't just money, but it was also experiences. So, for instance, I think about like the Nexon Starter League, and then being able to make that trip out to Sail for TI3. What did that experience mean for you of like getting to go to TI, even if you weren't necessarily playing, but like as a spectator and getting to see all that stuff?
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember that. Totally forgot about that. You really research a lot about what happened. Yeah, by going to that tournament, there was a lot of motivation built in me, and uh, that kept that like made me keep going for another year. Maybe if I didn't go there, like my motivation kind of phasing starts having less belief in taking this as a job. My parents were kind of pressuring me to just go to regular work because it wasn't so late at that time that I uh, ended studying. By the
Right.
way, for some clarification, I didn't finish my grad school.
Right.
I just came back to Korea to do some KDL and decided I'm not gonna go back to study. I'm just gonna keep pursuing my career here.
Right, but that experience maybe a little bit was you talked about like just doing one more year. There was this feel of like I guess that's something that I can relate to as well, right? As like a
hmm
caster, there's these thoughts that you have of like at the very beginning, it's like, okay, well, we'll give this a year and see how it goes. Kind of was that kind of your experience as well of like we're gonna give this a set amount of time and then we'll figure out at that point what we want to do, reflect on it a little bit.
Yeah, that too. But seeing the tournament was like more, oh, I wanna be there. I wanna play there,
Right.
and also felt like, oh, I think I can do this, and uh, and then because I was young, I believed in more myself, and yeah, maybe thinking back to it, it could have been like low chance of myself succeeding next year in the TI4. Uh, yeah, but definitely it helped me make a decision to be there and see the tournament.
Yeah. There's definitely something about that of seeing somebody else's success can lead you to like being able to see maybe I can do that too. Totally. Um, That's really cool. I like that a lot. So one of the moments that stuck out to me too during that period is like it wasn't just all sunshines and rainbow at all for you as far as winning everything. Once you were winning stuff, you kind of stepped out into the bigger pond, and I remember that that trip that you guys took to Kiev, playing in that Starladder, where you didn't manage to win a single game at the entire event. Now, granted, there were some really strong teams there, but can you tell me a little bit about like what that experience was like and how that led to learning forward? Because you mentioned, again in one of those interviews that your team was really strong together, but that your level of play wasn't where you wanted it to be.
I just remember like losing there, and bef- before going to the Starladder, I kind of knew like some famous players there already.
Right.
Like I was like friends with Ice 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 and Dandy from like Dota 1,
Right.
and yeah, I just remember even back. There's a like really a long history between Ice 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 and me. I've been like losing to him for like 10 years,
Oh my
since
God.
like Dota 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. It happens to be that he's like always in a strong team, like Zenith or we. I was competing against him in AWCG in like 2000, like 8. With Ian, and then in the scrims we will never win against him,
Right.
and like it just like continued my way all the way to like that. He's like DK team in the Starladder. Later on, 2015 in the VG, I lost to him.
Right.
Yeah, I just keep continuing on with him. So it wasn't. I didn't really care so much about uh, losing. I felt like we learned a lot in that tournament. Maybe like our attitude going to that tournament was better. Maybe it's kind of like sad to not expect to win, but we we just want to learn as much as possible. And
Right.
sometimes as an underdogs, if you just get to play against the big names like Dandy, Ice Ice Size, just that self sometimes becomes a lot of confidence booster, and you can just be a strong player just by even losing to those people. Yeah.
It reminds me of the way that people talk about going to lands now out of the DPC, where it's these teams that I think about, for instance, nowadays, right? Like the Zoomers are undying from North America, or I think about what could have potentially been with the Geek Fam team. We'll talk more about that later, but obviously, but then also like sort of the Liquid as well, the current Liquid, and their rise up through Alliance, like these teams that get better by getting stomped, sort of, and do you think that there's like a way that or I guess do you feel like this is a trend that's going to continue a little bit, where like teams that are getting stomped now in the DPC are going to start to like get better and experience more growth than they would have otherwise?
I mean, definitely experience matters a lot. Mm, yeah, as an underdog, like just getting stomped by let's say a big names,
Right.
just and then you actually play against them, and if you ever happen to take a game off of them or just like play good against them, you just suddenly gain so much confidence that you feel like you thought they were like so far away from you, but
Right.
they're actually not. They're just like
They're
same
human.
Dota players. Yeah, yeah, and you sometimes get a motivation that, oh, if I keep trying hard, maybe one day I can beat them. But if you never uh, if you never go to a LAN, or if you never get to compete with like the big names,
Hmm.
uh, you may lack a lot of motivations to go forward. So I guess like it has a lot to like getting stomped by big names has a lot to relate to the motivations.
Right. Well, and I guess the other part of that too is that if your if your mentality going in is we're going to be close and then you get stomped, that doesn't feel good. But if you come in and say, all right, we're the underdogs, and then you get stomped, then it's like, okay, we knew this was going to happen, and it doesn't break that team chemistry, which I feel like is so important, right? Is like everybody being on the same page together.
Yep, just maybe mindset of like we just want to learn as much as possible here.
Right.
We don't really care win or lose. Uh, those ways, that I think the are sometimes the advantages of the underdogs, where they don't care win or lose, so they don't get pressured by the stage, and maybe the opponent team is feeling different. Where at the TI, hey, I don't want to lose to this team.
Right.
This team is easy. Let's just yeah win
Yeah.
easy, but sometimes there can be a surprise because of it.
So your team did end up sort of gaining a lot from that period of time. It felt like, and you ended up going forward. I believe that was into TI4, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
That afterwards, you were able to come in as the underdogs. Of course, there was some stuff going on with Hot Six and you, and like some team swaps that happened, and they were able to qualify. You had to play through the wild cards, but you did play really really well there, and were able to take a game off of Virtus Pro, I believe, as well. Did that sort of instill some more confidence in you? What was it like actually getting to play and like actually performing well and exceeding people's expectations? as somebody that sort of struggling to do that for a little while.
Are you talking about 2014 or
I believe
15?
so. Well, because there was 2 rounds of it, right? 2015 was then the other one where you came in through that. Oh yeah, the 2015 was the one I was talking about. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, 2014, I think we lost to Liquid in the
Right.
final, and then did not make it. And at the time, it was just like one team, just one MVP
Right.
was Heen. And after that, we went to some tournaments and we lost really, really badly. Heen and I got mad at each other. We
Ah.
split the team into half. So then it became MVP Phoenix and Hot Six. Uh, Even though like we were mad at each other, we understood that we just had to go separate way because we were not meant for each other.
Right.
Yeah, if you look at the characteristic of us, there's a lot of overlapping stuff where I think both wanting to draft, and yeah, so we go when it part of way. MVP Phoenix, MVP team sponsored the both team, Hot Six and Phoenix, uh, and then we had a lot of trainings against each other in the C region. So we had a lot of good players. We had Jarax, we had KP, and because we had a lot of talented players, we became really strong. We had a lot of Korean League of Legends systems installed in us when we were practicing,
Okay.
and uh,
What
there
do you
was a
mean by
lot of.
systems?
So what happened was the MVP team,
Hmm.
the organization was also same organized. They sold their League of Legends team to Samsung, and that team is a team that won the champions around that
Okay.
time.
That's
They
crazy.
had, yeah, they won the TI of League of Legends, and then their second team was like also at the TI of the Worlds at the League of Legends as well, right?
Hmm.
So they had an experience of sending the two teams to Worlds, and then uh, yeah, so same coaching staff was doing that for Dota, and then they were telling us the experience of like how they train, and yeah, I have some experience. I kind of know like how like League of Legends teams scrim each other. It's actually crazy if you hear about it. I'm kind of getting off the topic, but
No, it's fine. Go for it.
yeah, in the Dota, how we scrim is like we would set like three BO2 with like one team, right?
Yeah.
The three different teams. But what I figured out in League of Legends is that just in Korea is they scrim one team BO7 in one day or something. They was scrim in like afternoon, and then there was maybe because they have a lot of roster, they would change here and there a bit, and they would eat dinner and they'll scrim again at the night. Uh,
Wow.
and what I figured out some of the difference between that and just like the regular way people scrim otherwhere like even in League of Legends, that's how it's only done in the Korea. And maybe some of the success to that is that because you play against someone so many times, you kind of get to know what the other guy is doing, and in the drafting and in the play, they know you really well. They know your uh, strengths really well. They know your weaknesses really well. And just by repeating playing against the same team and trying to beat them, you would they will keep abusing your weakness. So your weakness will get smaller, and then your strengths at the same time will not work against the enemy team because they kind of know and they're preventing it, right? So
Right.
in order to make yourself a stronger, you need to make your strength stronger and weaknesses weaker as well. And that's what I felt when we were playing against MVP and Hot Six and ourselves, because we would do BO7 against each other
Right.
over and over. And we would know for sure that they're not gonna leak our strategy because they're our brother teams, right?
Yeah.
Uh, one of the differences at that time, what happened was in the League of Legends, they were allowed to have two teams under one organization.
Right.
But that changed after Korean teams like dominating so much, and they're using this system. They would have a brother team,
Hmm.
but now they just do it with like some team that they trust, right? So
Right. Do you think that that's something that could start to see more play in Dota 2? Like, or do you think that it's just everything is so competitive that it's hard to be willing to give that type of access to somebody else? That's the first thing that comes to my
uh,
mind.
they only do it in Korea between the Korean teams. They don't
Right.
even do like I heard there's the Chinese teams doesn't scream that way. They just do like same as a Dota.
Yeah.
But just in League of Legends Korea, I just know
Right.
they just do 1v07 against one team.
But do you think that that's something that Dota teams would try and emulate to try and do that themselves, or do you think it's just too different from what everybody does right now?
Uh, I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm just not so sure. Like against, let's say against Fnatic or TNC, would I want to do it? Mm, maybe, maybe not. I'm not.
It's hard
Yeah,
to
I'm not so
know.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
All right, well that's
Because
really
they will
interesting.
get stronger as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the competitiveness of that is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. The way that people scrim is something that like even from somebody that's really involved in the pro scene like sort of I am, I still don't think about that at all. It's so unique to teams and the way that they think about it and who they scrim and who they don't scrim. Like I know it's important, but like I don't understand it. So that's awesome. Well, really interesting. So I mean, with that as well, you know, you end up having these two teams that at TA5 go there. They have really impressive results. I think specifically, you know, for your team, you get top 8 through like, you know, again, one of those stories that we're gonna have to leave for another day. But you end up impressing everybody, I think, and showing that this style of Dota that you've been working on, you've been perfecting, really works. What was that experience like for you? What was it like to like actually not only have success, but have success that's like recognized the world around as like this dude's a baller. This guy's who we should try and emulate. What was that like?
Felt good. I just remember there was like uh, a lot of confidence. Maybe like like as a Dota player, if you don't have any like good title under the belt, and going into the tournament, I knew it was somewhat of the ending. At the time, I thought it was like the end of my Dota career, like
Really?
because I was
Army.
planning to go to the army after the tournament, and I just didn't see myself coming back to the Dota scene after 2 years of 2 or more years of the break. So I just didn't really have any. I want to have any regret, and just at least wanted to have myself a decent, uh, yeah, decent result before ending my dream. So there was a lot of emotions going through my mind, and I wasn't really happy. Yeah. It was still like, uh, yeah, I think that's the TI8 runs when I beat Empire
Hmm.
or Team UB was still my most memorable moments of my Dota life, even more than winning the major or ESL.
Wow, that's really impressive. I mean, that's cool. And it makes sense, you know. Everybody talks about TI being the sort of be all end all. That's great. And I guess that the flip side of that as well now is right afterwards, it was sort of this inevitability that you're talking about, something that you had to do, which was right at the peak of your career, having to go off and do your military service. Can you tell us a little bit about like your mental state at that point and what that experience was like? I mean, obviously, you know, you talk a lot about, and I've heard so many interviews where you say like, you know, you can't look back, you just have to look forward. But in the moment where you were right then, what was it like?
Well, uh, I mean, no, without no filtering, I want to kill myself
Oh
in the army.
no.
I think a lot of Korean people think that. Like, I think at least few soldiers would think that way, but uh, they never, like, a lot of people may sometimes think, but they never really do it.
Right.
Felt really depressed when I saw MVP like do so well without me. Felt like I could have been part of it if I didn't have to go to the army, and uh, yeah, felt really depressed. But uh, kind of PMA person, I have family, and there were a lot of people who love me, support me. So yeah, rather than just sitting and being depressed about what could have happened, which is not real, I had to find myself something uh, useful for useful for myself to do. So uh, uh, I quit smoking. I've been smoking like 10 years, but I want to do something useful myself for myself. So I quit smoking while I was in the army. My I was kind of fat before the army. Just like started working out in the gym, so I could be more fit. So yeah,
Uh,
physically I try to be myself. Try to be more healthy. So it could cover all for my like sad mentalness, and
right.
I could think more healthy if I'm physically more healthy. That's what I was trying to do, I think.
I can tell the positivity part of you is definitely exuding out, because I just asked you to describe your state, and you had to go into how I coped with it afterwards, because that's just the type of person that you are, is looking at the positive side of it and how you dealt with it, which is good. I think that's great. And I think that, you'd mentioned too that like that first year you didn't even really get to play Dota, because you didn't your timing there, you weren't at the level that you needed to get free time off. But when you did start to, in the second year, get some more free time to play Dota, did it feel like sort of scratching an itch, or like did it feel good, or was it more of the, oh my god, I could be winning right now?
At the time, it wasn't like more like winning. Like I was watching MVP they playing, and yeah, I mean, it felt kind of sad that I could have been part of it, but I don't know, somehow because I didn't play for Dota for so long, there
Hmm.
was a lot of like motivations like firing up on myself, and whenever I would have a free time, I would just play non-stop Dota, even like in one day, uh, because on the break, because I don't have so many times to play,
Right.
I watched how many games I played per day. I was playing close to like 20 games a day
Oh my
for like one week
god.
straight. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's great though.
Uh-huh.
And you can tell that you still had the fire in you.
Yeah, and it's like actually crazy playing 20 games a day. Like sometimes I count, and we have a system where like we count number of the games we play in T1, so I will keep them uh I will like keep them in shape. And they play enough pubs, and the restrictions are usually at 8. Like if you play more than 8 pubs a day, that's a lot, right?
Wow.
And then thinking that 20, yeah, that was a lot.
It's funny where the mind goes when you sort of want something back and you try and do everything for it. It's crazy. So everybody, when they talk about TI8, they always talk about OG, but there's this situation that people might not know about. You almost made that not happen through the coaching of the Wind and Rain team going up to TI8, which was Ritsu, Bryo, Frev, Milan, Gitrak. Can you tell me a little bit just about like how that happened? You being the coach of them and all that stuff.
It was mainly for up. So I was also trying to compete in the European qualifiers with QO. I think there's a big help from him. I just got back from the army. I was really really bad, and but QO kind of trusted that I'll be good in the time. So we formed a team together, and there were players like Warnus from the TI5 and Raisin, like the other MVP players that I played with. I actually forgot our mid laner who it was, but yeah, he was a good play. Oh, he was a good player.
It was
But
God, who was it? I think I know who it was. Didn't he go to play in Southeast Asia later? He was Jordanian, wasn't he? Am I blanking on that? Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, he was a good player.
yeah, he was a good player. I can't remember who he was. Uh, but yeah, we didn't get to make it through the open qualifier. I was sad in my room, depressed. But yeah, Forep messaged me, hey, bro, if you're not doing anything following up, can you come help us out for this thing? Just come to Germany, and you can just tell us what you think, make us stronger. So I said, yeah, I got nothing else to do. Let's just do whatever I can. I just got out of army. Yeah, do whatever I can to get back to the scene. Maybe by just coaching them, I can learn more. That was my thoughts. I wasn't really thinking that I could do much for them, but yeah, I went there and just like started working.
Yeah. Well, and that team, it ended up placing really, really well, in the
Uh-huh.
upper bracket finals, 1-2 against OG. And then afterwards in the grand finals, it was 2 games away. 1-3 was the final score. But there were multiple times where it felt like you were right on the verge of eliminating them. Did it feel after OG won the whole TI? What was that like where you're like, oh my God, we almost beat those guys?
Felt like yeah, if there was a I think there was a thing where there was 3 NA slots at that
Right.
time, and yeah, it felt really bad because like if there was just like 2 slots at the EU, we could have been to the TI and done really well. I think the players were really strong, and they were capable of playing really well at that time. Uh, yep. So that was a really sad part. 3 NA slots. at the time. One EU.
It's funny how that stuff never changes. There's always a little bit of upsetness about the slots, and it's always
There's
between
actually
EU and NA.
yeah. There's actually a one funny storyline where there was an event matchup in Toronto.
Right.
After that, where OG went to play just right before the TI, and I do you know the team Immortals back then with
Yes, it was
uh,
you, Rayoya, and who else? I think so.
Fabi?
Moo and Febby. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I wasn't even part of it,
Oh,
but
you weren't. Okay.
uh, they were trying to. I forget that guy's name. It was like there's another Korean offlaner guy. He's nothing to say
Velo.
profile picture. Velo, yeah. So we played against OG as an event match, and then we won against them 3-2. They weren't playing serious, but
Right.
yeah, we won against them, and they won TI after. So a lot of things felt awkward for me at the time.
It's like
Yeah.
again, you're like in this proximity of all these people that are doing these amazing things, and then you're just right on the outsides of it again. It is what it kind of felt like in a way. Which again, a lot of things happen in between TI8 and TI9, but just to scoot forward to the qualifiers again, because I think that this was another story that it shows a lot else of what happened throughout the time. But the Jinesbrus squad, so you, Febby, Forev, Gunner, and 23 Savage, you win the group stage, but then immediately after winning the group stage of Southeast Asia, it's 2-0'd by Mineski. And then you have to run through this lower bracket, take down Amplify, take down Adroit, and then the grand finals against Mineski. You're up 2-1 in the series after 6 games being played because you had to come through the lower bracket. And then you're into the 4th game, 41 minutes into the game. There's a fight, breaks out, craziness ensues, and then your DP and your Jug buy back. And then some decision gets made by some collection of youth all together. You decide to go for the tier 4 towers, take down one of them, but then DP dies with no buyback. They run it down mid and take the series. So it's now 1 game away from going to TI again. What was that experience like?
Oh,
I imagine bad. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Bring
yeah,
it
yeah,
up
bad.
again.
Mhm. I'm kind of over it, but yeah, that is the most saddest life of my whole Dota career. Where yeah, like if someone asks me what's the saddest moment of your Dota career, that exact moment will be my saddest moment of my Dota career. There was a lot of bad conditions at that time. We were playing in the LAN cafe where there was a lot of cigarette smells, and I was getting a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
My throats were very sore, so we weren't really physically healthy. The food wasn't that good either because we had to set up a boot camp at the without any help,
Right.
with limited help, in the Singapore. So we couldn't perform to our 100%, and I think uh,
It had been like 7 hours of gameplay at that point too, of just
yeah,
sitting in that environment, I'm sure as well.
at the really bad condition, and I think our team was like really really strong at that time. We would scrim against eHome, IG, like a lot of famous Chinese teams back time, and then literally our win rate would be around 90%
Oh my
in the
god.
scrims. Yeah. Uh, so I didn't imagine ourselves losing at all, but just this idea of oh my god, just 1 game from TI. I think that started eating us, and uh, I think that's what happened. At the game 4, I just remember there was a DD in front of the Roche pit. We could have finished the Roche and then went to Roche. We didn't have to die back, but just the idea that we are so tired, we just want to end this and go to the TI. We have 1 game left. Maybe we just YOLO and try to win. So
Right.
we lost that game. Uh,
And I
I didn't feel
imagine
like
I
yeah.
imagine after that it's really hard to pull yourself back up again. I remember we were casting those games, and somebody in the interview said after that game 4, they said they're done. There's no way they can win game number 5. I imagine it's really hard to come back from it afterwards.
I personally thought like I wasn't mentally damaged at that time,
Right.
but I remember Febby was worried that we were mentally damaged and saying it.
Yeah.
Uh, so maybe a lot of things were coming into everyone's head. I tried to calm everyone down, but I don't think it worked. And our game 5 draft was like really ugly. I was saying like KP doesn't play Enchantress, so let's just give him the Enchantress, but he picks it, and uh, yeah, that was a time where I learned that TP is really good against IO Gyro or something,
Yeah.
and
I'm sorry to bring you back to this mental place again, March. I'm so sorry. I didn't want this
it's
interview to be traumatizing.
it's okay. I remember myself trying to like neutral creeps, trying to stack as the Omni Knight, and yeah, things were bad at the time. And I didn't really watch the replay. I would usually watch a lot of replays and see why we lost, but
Right.
did not even reflect on it. Didn't touch the replay, and I just like this kind of this part of memory I just buried somewhere. Never looked back, but I'm okay. I can look back at it right now.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I think that that's the thing that's like so tough about this and crazy is that with Dota, you just have to move on and look for the next best thing. It's so rare that people do kind of like look back at what happened. But that being said, even after that sort of unfortunate situation, TI9, you still end up going as a coach for Fnatic. Unfortunately, you did go out in the first round, but regardless of that, also, did it feel good to be back again at TI? You know, at TI you had been there as an analyst, but to actually be involved in sort of more of the playing side of it, was it nice to be back?
Yeah, definitely. That team was pretty strong too. We could have performed better. Uh, it was help of Ice Ice Ice. Always some friends help you to get to the team. Yeah, learned a lot of stuff. But I think I wasn't so much of a good coach at that time. Like I was like more trying to force my ideas.
Mm.
But if I was better coach, I felt like I could have done more. So I guess I learned how to be as a better coach at the time.
Interesting. So you think that with the coaching, it's much more about just amplifying what the team is doing as opposed to just bringing your own ideas.
If you have a long time, I think you can bring in your ideas and then make them play that way. But it wasn't like I played them with 1 year. I just like coached them for 1 or 2 months,
Right.
just right before the TI. So I think what the way I should have went should have been more like amplifying them, like pointing out their mistakes where like make their weaknesses smaller,
Right.
strengthen their strengths, rather than teaching them like new way of playing Dota, right? I think I should have focused on the first part.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, after that period of time, you know, and definitely the heartbreak of, you know, not being able to go to TI but 9 and then also going out early with the Fnatic squad as well. You did end up, if I'm getting this right, correct me if I'm wrong, talking a little bit with Heen about, you know, where you want to go going forward. And then from that talk and then obviously more talks with TNC as well, you end up joining that roster. What was it like? And then obviously as well afterwards, being able to go into Chengdu Major and actually coming out with the win and, you know, if there wasn't the pandemic, basically guaranteeing your spot to TI-10 at that point.
Uh, I mean, I was watching a lot of TNC games because I was looking to join a team as a post five even before the TI, and I felt like watching each players. They were really talented. Gabby, Armel, Tims, even Kuku, and AU as well. But AU, I had to kind of look to replace him. But
Right.
yeah, they seemed really strong, and uh, it was my number one priority team to join at the time.
Mm.
If I had an option to. Luckily, my best friend Heen was there. I went to them and then talked to him about what do you think their weakness is? Do you think I will fit well into the team? He had kind of idea. He knows me really well about how I think about Dota, and he watched like Jinesbrus. At the time, I think my performances were really good too, and I was really confident in myself as a player. So I appealed to them that I want to play. I talked to Armel in his practice room.
Right.
Kuku, I mean Kuku wasn't there. He already left as soon as that tournament was over, and
Right.
uh, yeah, they I think they had Armel had a good impression about me at that time, and what I heard was that he was the one that he wants me in TNC.
Okay.
Uh, so that's how I was able to join the team.
Interesting. And then obviously at Chengdu Major, you
Hmm.
guys go there. You're able to win the victory and come out on top. And then, as I sort of alluded to, it felt like that was supposed to be the one where it's like, okay, now we go to TI because of the DPC and the way the point system works. Almost anybody that wins a major is going to be going. And then this little thing called COVID happened. Obviously, it was clear that the global pandemic was going to affect everybody in the world. You probably weren't just thinking about Dota. You were thinking about like how this affects the rest of the world and your family and all that other stuff. But after some time had passed and there was like some time to process things, what was sort of going through your head when you realized that TI10 wasn't going to happen that year and that you also weren't going to be able to probably transfer those points over? What was it like?
Just pure sadness. My plan in Dota was I'm getting old, reaching my 30s. There's no players that are very successful after that time, right? And it's like it gets harder and harder. So, yeah, I just wanted to get myself on the map again and then proceed to my next step of life, which is being a good coach. Uh,
Right.
but didn't get to do it. I was really sad. But again, PMA person. I tried to be PMA person, and I think through before the pandemic, through my whole life, I was studying in Canada and always being overseas for the boot camp. Went to army, didn't get to spend so much time with my family, but because of COVID, I was stuck in Korea uh, without being able to leave. So I got to actually spend a lot of times with my parents, uh, and I think it was really good. Actually, yeah, became much more healthy because I'm living with my parents, and
Yeah.
uh, maybe soon I'll get married, move out, right? And I'll not. Yeah, so it was a very uh, pleasure time, important. I think this time in the future will be very important time of my life in the future, if I reflect back on it.
Yeah.
But missing
Everything's
TI was that, yeah.
right. Well, I mean, I think that's a good point, and it's sort of proven true throughout your career that these things that feel like setbacks lead to you being a more well-rounded person. And having that connection with the family is really important. Definitely, my family's about to come and visit me for a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to it as well because I haven't got to see them throughout a lot of the pandemic, and I think that's it's really cool that you're able to spend so much time with them there. It's great. Well, I guess that then the other thing too that sort of goes behind that and leads us into sort of closer to where we are today was that after Chengdu, there was like the third at the Dream League qualifiers. You got seventh, eighth actually at Dream League. And then notably, another tournament, the One Esports Southeast Asia League. You guys got, as part of TNC, third behind Geek Fam and Fnatic. And it's kind of notable that that Geek Fam team was Carl, Cuckoo, Zephyr, and Whitemon, and then Raven. And then,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about T1 and how all this happened. There's a couple of different iterations before you joined that we don't need to necessarily go into a ton of. There was like Frev and Miracle and Black were all part of that, but you end up
Mhm.
joining, and then it felt like you were kind of able to draw a lot of the strongest player from other teams around. There was Carl that joined first. You had Jackie from Motivate Trust, Zephyr and Cuckoo and Whitemon, and then eventually Jackie is out and 23 Savage is in. Did you always have it planned that you kind of wanted that Geek Fam roster together, or did it just sort of like evolve that way naturally?
Uh, no, it wasn't the Geek Fam roster that I wanted.
Right.
We the So like the way I view Dota is there's good players and there are Dota winners.
Mm,
Like they're just players that wins that makes players like stronger.
right.
Uh, and then I think uh, a person like that is Cuckoo. I'll consider 23 Savage as a good player, but without winners, he's not gonna win. And I thought, yeah, Cuckoo was the key. Like just like watch back to his history, he's been always in the powerful teams in Southeast Asian region. He's been to TI every single year almost after TI 6.
Mm,
Uh, and I know like I kind of know I was in the team with him for Among Us just for fun tournaments, and heard how he thinks about Dota and know how he can make the team stronger. So yeah, got him on the team first. Car recently at that time hit 11K MMR, and even I actually didn't have a good relationship with Car before because I was in TNC, he was in Geek Fam. We were tipping each other, like how Car tips and
Yeah,
pisses off the enemy. But
of
yeah, I
course.
put my small emotions away and then knew he was a strong player, so got him on the team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, putting business in front of. Yeah, but we're good friends now. We're good friends now.
That's good.
After he joined the team, I straight told him, "Hey, Car, I used to hate you when you're in Geek Fam. You kept on tipping me after the kill, but now I'm good. I like you." And then he's like laughing too. But uh, yeah, so I just knew Cuckoo was key. Like he will make the team strong and started off there. Carl, he was a good player, and then I knew they had a good relationship together. I asked Cuckoo, "What do you think about Carl?" And he said, "Yeah, he's a good player. Let's get him on the team." We started there and just tried out a lot of players. We tried a lot of players out for position 5, 4, and it just turned out to be the Geek Fam roster. They were better. They uh, Zephyr and Cuckoo had a really good synergy going on together, so we got him, and Whitemon and Zephyr had a really good synergy too, where they would keep discussing about what's wrong or not, what can be done better in Indonesian language, so I don't understand at all, but I'm telling them to speak in English now.
Okay.
And yeah, I just knew that they will grow automatically because they're always talking about Dota together and talking about what can be done better next time, what can be done wrong. Sometimes some players will just like play and not really talk about anything, right?
Yeah.
I can just step in as a coach and try to make it work, but it's limited. So they're just like self-evolving players was what I saw. So that's why I think it was good to get them
Right. Well, and
together.
that's really something that's sort of, I think, important is like you can only do so much as any individual. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
that success has to be self motivated. Like it's not always enough just to be self motivated, but it has to be there. Otherwise, you're not going to find that success. Um, well, it's really cool. And I guess then, like, just in terms of the way that T1 has functioned and looked over this past year, I feel like there isn't an organization that's come in and had more success more quickly than this org. Like, if you look at who that organization was like a year ago and now what they are today, in Dota, it feels like a complete and total 180. Do you think that, like, I mean, again, I'm going to ask you to toot your own horn here, but do you think that had at least something or a decent amount to do with you and the direction you wanted the team to go when?
Uh, yeah, I think
Okay.
I was a big part of it. I made a lot of important decisions, but also they had strong belief in me and they were supporting me on whatever I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
And they supported me a lot. So yeah, I was able to like do everything I wanted with their support. So
Okay.
yeah.
It's interesting because
Mm.
I think that that's something that not everybody would always be willing to do. A lot of people want to become really involved in the minutia, and it's leaving it up to somebody who sort of knows the understanding of how Dota needs to be played and how it needs to be played well, and that's not easy, I would imagine, for a lot of people to do. But it's proven to have some success. That's great. Animajor, you end up qualifying to TI. It's happening. When when the news came out about Sweden, were you just pulling out your hair at that point? Like, why are they trying to keep me away again?
Not this again, not this again. Yeah, I was like, I will be like the most unluckiest Dota player if I just miss Dota out because of the COVID. But I kind of had a strong belief. I still have a strong belief that TL will happen this year.
Yeah.
Uh, because uh, yeah, there's a qualifiers going on, and it's like a little bit different. Even though I think it will get delayed, I think we will still be able to keep our invitation slot. Is the strong belief that I have.
That's fair. And I guess that
Honestly,
go
PMA, yeah.
PMA. There it is.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. The sort of interview that you were doing on the exit of the Animajor, you talked about needing to like reset the players after games was one of the biggest challenges. Have you like? I guess that this is something I can sort of ask you more about because it's not related to Dota strategy. But have you found ways that work in terms of like resetting players mentally in between games at all, or is it still sort of like a constantly evolving thing?
Well, I tried to give them the fresh air, just like we none of our players smoke, but we just try to go outside and take the fresh air, deep breeze, uh, just not try to think about the weight of the game. Just try to think game by game and focus mind controlling to think that this is just another scrim. Don't think about it so important is what I try to tell them.
Okay. And you mentioned that also, like performing up to the level of your scrims is always, I feel like that's something that I hear from every Dota team to some extent, is just playing with it. Do you think that it's the pressure of the moment that causes people to not play up to scrims, or is it that the crowd is an impact? Is it sort of a mixture of all those things? What is it that you think causes teams to sort of not be able to play at that same level that they do when nothing's on the line, when everything's on the line?
I think there's like two part of it. Number one is like definitely the pressure, but number one is the pressure, but number two is actually like keeping your condition to 100%. What happened at the Animajor is that the games were scheduled really late, but our players would wake up really early and play all day early. So by the time they get to the
Oh,
tournament, they're like tired.
right.
Uh, but I think some of the things players should do is if your match is at 6, like just try not to just try to sleep late the day before and wake up around like 2 and play just one game only and then go to the stage and play it. But yeah, they were waking up at 9 a.m. or like 10 a.m. We'll play until like 3 and then go back to sleep. So
Wow.
there's like sleep for like 2 hours, come back, and your warm up is ruined, and then go to the tournaments and play something like that. Yeah. So my advice would be, day before, don't try to sleep so much, and just wake up few hours before the tournament, so you can play at 100%.
I mean, that's still got to be rough though. Like if there's 4 best of 3s that are scheduled on a day, and
Hmm.
or maybe even more. I don't think we do more than that anymore. It starts to become a pretty big problem of like you could play at the noonish, or you could play at this time, or it could be like way later, and that's just sort of something that's tough to deal with. But I guess the last other thing that I want to talk about with that Intermajor interview that you mentioned was that I wasn't sure if I heard you right when you had said this, but that the OG model was kind of what you guys were going off of just trying to have fun. And that's why you'd like pick that Elder Titan in the last game that was going on and stuff like that. And is that sort of something that's constantly in the forefront of your mind? Where you're constantly trying to say, okay, how can we just like make sure that we're keeping spirits up, or is it more like something that's running in the background? How much emphasis do you put on that idea of trying to have fun constantly?
It's not so much about the fun, but it's not so much about putting the weights on the games, like if it matters or not. And like ET, when we were picking it, in the like you just go back to it when you're drafting. Like this game is like so important. We never picked ET before, so that's why we're gonna cross it out and not pick. That's not something that I
Oh,
wanna do, but it's more like this game is like really important. But will we pick this hero in the scrim even though we didn't play? And uh, if it even despite like not playing it at all, but if it thinks it's a good hero, we can do it. So yeah, that's why we picked it, and yeah, thought it was really good hero, but didn't work out so well.
that's how it happens sometimes, who knows.
Hmm.
Well, I guess then the last couple of things that I sort of wanted to talk about was looking forward to TI10, which again, we don't know necessarily when that's going to be yet. But I kind of share your sentiments that there's a chance it could be delayed. There's a chance that it ends up being moved back. But I imagine these same teams are going to be playing in it no matter what. Granted, I have no information at all really, so I'm just talking out somewhere where I shouldn't be. But anyways,
I got no information either.
right,
Yeah, just
exactly.
my assumptions too.
But Southeast Asia qualifiers finished up. Fnatic, the other team that's going to be making it through.
Hmm.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how you watched those matches? I'm assuming you watched the games that went on, yeah?
Yep. I watched every game except for last 3 games of the final.
Okay. That's a weird couple of games to not watch, but okay.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts about the qualifiers as a whole, specifically Fnatic's performance, or any of the other teams that you felt like maybe should have been able to make it through but weren't able to in the end?
Uh, OB Neon, MG Trust. I expected them to perform much better as well. Uh, and what I felt was, wow, the C region has grown so much, and there are like so many close teams. Even though like let's say Fnatic or T1 performs well at the TI, I don't expect ourselves to be dominating the scene. Like let's say the DPC happens again around like the fall, right, or the winter season, and I think C is growing really strong as a region. Was what I felt when I was watching the tournaments. Every teams were very high skilled and capable of beating each other.
Right. Well, I don't want to bait you into any drama, but there's
Uh-huh.
definitely a lot of contention going on around C and around North America and around Europe and around all the different regions right now about who deserves this many slots and all that stuff. That's not something I necessarily want to go into, but I guess that one thing that I'm kind of curious about is like TI kind of feels like it has this limit on the number of teams that can be there. And it feels like the number of teams that are really good is now passing the number of teams that are invited to TI, where there's always somebody that it feels like is being left out. Um, do you think that the DPC can ever get to the point where it kind of makes up for that difference? Like where you can be a team and be okay not going to TI but still being really good. Can you imagine that happening, or is it a little bit too crazy?
Actually, that's what it is for the Southeast Asia teams. They are actually like, I mean, they really want to go, but I don't really think OB Neon or MG Trust will disband. I have a feeling they will like stick together even after the TI, and they will continue the next year. That's why I think C region will be more competitive. Even like Execration or like Boom ID, I feel like they're gonna stick together. But maybe in some other regions, if the teams don't make it, they will just like disband and look for opportunities to uh, just form a good team and then start over from the beginning. Uh, yep, but see people, I guess they have a lower expectations. Maybe they're a little bit more satisfied with. They're like still satisfied with like the prize money because I guess GDP is a little bit lower here.
Right.
Um, and they can make a living off of it.
Hmm.
They are still motivated with uh, the less they get. I don't know if it's like a good thing or bad thing, but I guess it's a good thing. They're still motivated even by not making it to the TI, right?
Right.
Uh, so the scene will be more competitive. But I hope uh, there will be more rewards in the DPC system where it could uh, satisfy the other regions as well.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing that's so interesting is that in Southeast Asia you can tell all these teams still there's like so much motivation and desire to make it, but it doesn't end careers in the way that it can for other regions potentially if they don't go. Maybe it does for some people as well, but that's a very interesting little point, and it's different in every region what that point is for sure. Well, that's awesome. Last thoughts going into the teams that you've seen at TI 10 and the teams that you know are going to be there. Um, is there anything that like I guess I don't really want to get like where you think you're going to place because I think that's kind of a dumb question. You're always just going to say first place, we're the best.
Uh-huh.
But I guess more so than that is, do you feel like the field of Dota players is getting stronger year by year? Do you feel like because there's some people that said that felt like there was like with COVID happening there was a decline in skill. Do you think that the teams are still getting better though year after year and like sort of getting stronger competition at the top?
I, I I don't know about the other regions, but I think C regions is like getting stronger. I never like okay, so they are C players. They're known for their mechanical skills, but little less for thinking.
Right.
But because of the COVID, and then we're stuck here, and then we're playing against each other over and over, I can strongly feel that they're getting smarter and smarter because
Okay.
yeah, we are playing against them a lot of times, right? And see teams getting smarter and smarter. They're already mechanically talented, so that's why they're getting stronger. Is the feeling that I get from the C teams. Not sure about the other regions. I don't really I don't really agree with like the skills declining is what I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's
But
good to
maybe
hear.
less motivations for the other regions. So, like for like already accomplished players, so maybe they're not training hard.
Hmm.
That's what I heard. And then I could agree with like some of the top players. They're less motivated, so their skills are declining. But for motivated teams, I don't think that's true.
Okay. Well, motivated teams, stay motivated. Well, March, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Do you want to give any shout outs before we end this one here? People you want to say shout outs to or much love to, anything, any of that stuff?
Uh, Shout out to T1
There you go.
for a lot of the help and then being always supportive for our teams to succeed. Uh, and yeah, shout out to my family. I love my family and my team. Yeah.
All right, awesome. I love your family's bookcase. It's beautiful back there. It's so pretty. It makes you look so intelligent as well. All right,
Didn't read any
everybody.
of them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it happens. Maybe later. Have a good one, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you hopefully next time around. Adios.